with those that led NCHE, but I just want to remind you of them by name, who creatively shaped the role of regulation of higher education in this country one after another. Those leaders are the late Honorable Joash Mayanja Nkanji, Honorable Amanya Mshega, the late Professor Apollo Nsibambi, Professor Kidu Makubuya, Honorable Geraldine Vitamazire, my immediate predecessor, Her Excellency the Vice President Jessica Lupo, their ministers of state and technical teams. All these people who have come before the current generation of leaders in this sector have played a key role in birthing and nurturing this youthful institution called the National Council for Higher Education. Therefore, in a way, institutions do behave like living organisms. Human beings are born, they are then nurtured to survive the foundational years of life and childhood. They become adolescents and youth full of zeal. Ultimately, the desire is that they grow into responsible adults that fulfill the purpose for which God let them be here on earth. So these human-made institutions also take a similar path. Firstly, institutions are also born by being established. For the case of NCHE, it was born out of the Universities and Other Tertiary Institutions Act 2001, as you heard Professor Okwakol inform us. Secondly, God created human beings and gave them the delegated responsibility of being stewards of His creation here on earth. Well, similarly, NCHE was established to be a steward of the higher education subsector on behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports. So NCHE has the freedom to do what it does, but it is still accountable to the ministry that established it. Therefore, when we launched the 20 years anniversary celebrations for NCHE in March this year, we were also, in a way, looking at ourselves as a government to reflect on the achievements attained through the work of National Council for Higher Education. Thirdly, just like human beings attain physical and mental growth, so do institutions. NCHE started off with 4 employees 20 years ago, as again you heard from Professor Okwakol, and now has more than 50 staff to help the agency carry out its mandate. And I know that they are trying to find the funding that would enable them to employ more personnel. Fourthly, as human beings attain physical and mental maturity, responsibilities also increase. As you have already heard, there were 4 public and 7 private universities, plus 56 other tertiary institutions that the young NCHE was responsible for at the time of establishment. But right now, that number has grown to 265, as you have heard again from Professor Kwakol's speech. So as we celebrate these 20 years of National Council for Higher Education's existence, we are also taking stock of the leaps that the higher education subsector has done. The quantitative increase from 67 higher education institutions 20 years ago to 265 right now is a testament that the government has created an environment that fosters growth. This shows that NCHE's work has increased fourfold to monitor and authorize that many higher education institutions to operate. Your Excellency, as National Council for Higher Education stands at the gate setting off for the next 20 years, It needs to position itself as a catalyst for the transformation of the higher education system in Uganda to make our country a higher education hub for the East African region, and that is possible. However, this possibility, we must remind ourselves, should not just mean the multiplication of universities in quantity alone. The essence of this multiplication should be evident in the quality and excellence of our students' qualifications and competitiveness in the region. The government has endeavored to answer the question of access to higher education by establishing more public universities. The liberalization of the education sector has also widened opportunities by allowing the private sector to further increase access to higher education through establishing institutions of higher learning. The challenge that NCHE should address now is the quality of higher education being offered in these institutions, especially the science and technology programs. Therefore, NCHE must ensure that the programs and courses offered in both public and private higher education institutions do not vary in quality, because sometimes we tend to give excuses if the quality of some education institutions are not good. We start to give excuses of the fact that that is a private university, but that should not make any difference in our universities, whether public or private. All must be excellent programs and qualifications. That is when the education hub will truly be meaningful and significant. The higher education system should become relevant to the society it is operating in by rightly diagnosing the problems in society and their root causes before prescribing remedies and interventions. This is the only way higher education becomes the driver of socio-economic change. In addition, the higher education system should be seen to have a social purpose and not mere academic intent. The National Council for Higher Education should guide our higher education institutions in periodically measuring the relevance they are having in their community where they are situated. Can students and academic faculty engage more in solving common problems with the institutions surrounding the community? Lastly, our higher education system must be aggressive and ambitious enough in integrating ICTs in the pedagogical approaches to learning. This will impact the much required skills and abilities in students as they go out into the world of work. When higher education becomes fully integrated with ICTs in pedagogical approaches, the effects will naturally trickle down into the other subsectors of the education system. On behalf of the Ministry of Education and Sports, I'd like now to congratulate the chairperson and members of the National Council for Higher Education, the management and staff on this milestone of 20 years of regulating higher education in Uganda. Your Excellency, as a ministry, we are committed to continuous improvement of the policy and legal regime that enables effective regulation of the higher education subsector. The policy that is being developed shall place our higher education system on the path of alignment and relevance to our society and the demands in the 21st century world of work. I want to thank you for listening to me, and God bless you.